Now, the next thing I wanted to address here, and it's a kind of another big topic, is how do we handle businesses, bringing businesses into this system? Because we don't want to basically throw all the businesses under the bus by creating our own sort of new system, which just basically ignores the fact that we've got businesses where people work and they're getting paid, and they eventually those businesses are no longer needed. Then they're gonna be in trouble. So here's a way of handling that. Let me go to the next. Okay, so the way I've kind of seen this is there's many types of businesses. I'm just going to look at the three that came to my mind. I know there are other businesses, but the other types of business. But I think most businesses could be probably put into one of these three categories: leasing businesses, service businesses, and product businesses. So leasing businesses, the way I feel that this could be handled is owners of these leasing businesses, in other words, they're leasing property or resources that they have to others for a price. So the owners of those businesses, if they want to start to work with the city or be credited like individuals, so owners now of leasing businesses would sort of determine how much they're marking up their prices to cover their own profits. And for those that charge for the resources provided, the market rents for those resources could be determined, and a similar calculation as what's done for what I referred to earlier as individual services could be determined for each leasing service, so that an average rent or an average leasing fee could be determined for each resource in a given area of the town, and based on that, using accepted appraisal standards, they could be used to determine how much a business is contributing to as a percentage of the business profits. Now I put down here 7.5%. If you calculate it sort of like 3 hours out of 40 hours that a person is donating of their labor time, or 7% if you consider the 3 hours as an addition to their 40 hours, that's a 7% of that a person is donating of their time. So business would donate 7% of their profits. That's kind of the rationale for that. I realize that Michael Tellinger came up with a different system, a little bit different calculation, but let me get into that. This is just a way I thought to sort of be fair and comparable. The next type of business is service businesses, where a business is just there to provide services as a business, not just as individuals, but it's a business. It's a business that could be a contracting business that they send out contractors, and they just basically bill, and they throw a little bit of an additional fee on top of the fee that's there for the individuals. So these could be seen as a competition to the city, since both are providing laborers, but these could collaborate with the city in the sense that current workers continue to work their existing jobs. So a person who's working for one of these businesses just continues to do that. But any labor that's provided by the service business through a city worker allocation system would just get a markup on their hourly rates when a person gets chosen for service as part of the organization versus when they are chosen to provide service as identified as individuals. So the markup amount would go to the service business as their profits, and which they would share their 7% the same way as the previous type of business, a leasing business. So the way to handle this fairly would be the system. We could do a rotation of individuals between their consideration as individuals and consideration as employees of an organization, assuming that they are personally registered and that their organization is also participating as members of the system as a business. So if they're not personally registered, so I work for company A, I don't want to be part of this city system, but my business owner wants to be a part of it, then only time that they would come up is in that case would be as if they're randomly chosen for a job as the organization, and they get sent out to do the job. They're doing it for that company. They're going to continue to get their normal pay, but it's the owner that's going to benefit from the system, not them. And I realize this is all really complicated. You may have to go over this a few times to see what I'm talking about here. The point of this is that everybody is allowed to participate. Owners are allowed. Service businesses are allowed to participate in the system, and this is just a way to include them. Okay. The third type of business that I wanted to look at is the product business. Now, there's three ways I considered that the product business could be viewed. A product business is obviously a business that produces products. For that kind of business, it could either be sold or contributed to the city, or leased to buy to the city. And I'm going to get into that scenario. And the other scenario is, I guess it looks like I wrote down lease to the city, but actually where the owner is basically retaining ownership of the business and treating their ownership of the business almost like a profession of an individual's profession, where they donate hours of their week to the city or contribute. In this case, the business owner contributes a portion of their business profits, equivalent to that. So, but they retain ownership of that business in that case. So here's how I kind of see this happening. So as we mentioned here, okay, so the first idea is what I'm calling a collective business, or kind of like what that means is that it becomes a business of the city. Now, the members of the city system would have voted on this, saying, yes, we want to take this business as a community project. So the business would then become a community project. If the members don't see a value of bringing that business into its community projects, then this would not be an option for a business like this. But if it is a business that, like it's producing a lot of product that the city members have a need of, they might say, we want this to become a community project. Well, in that case, then the current owner, could either sell the business to the city. It would be appraised and it would be sold at a fair market value. The city would just basically buy the business, and the members of the system would foot the bill for that. It would be divided among all the members, the cost of that business. And there's a couple ways to do that. The other option is that the business owner could contribute that business to the city. It would be like an investment. And at that point, it would become a community project. That owner would continue to get 1/3 of the profits generated by that business for the life of that business. So however long that business lasts, they will always get 1/3 of the profits generated. And the other 2/3 would be divided, 1/3 among all the members and 1/3 for reinvestment of the city. That's kind of Michael Tellinger's model for businesses. But I see a couple other models. That's why I'm bringing those in. So basically the way that works is any repairs or services that would be performed would be allocated using the 3 hours of labor from the residents, and any resources that they would need to purchase would come from city funds or any funds generated by this business. Now, the second way of handling this is as a contribution, like I said, where it's done over time. So, and they could also do it at a lease to buy. It was a similar type of thing. So their sale of the business would be done over time, and then they would be credited, or the person would be paid over time. And so their income tax burden would be less. They wouldn't have to pay taxes immediately. And the other way to structure that is as a contribution that's contributed over time, so they could declare the donation over time as a tax credit. So similar type of thing in both cases. Now, and as I mentioned, is if the city doesn't agree to bring this on as a community project, that the owner of the business could retain ownership and just treat the profits of the business as kind of like their salary, like a regular person who has a job. And what you would do is you would basically calculate the profits of the business every month,
and just take 7% of that is the way I calculated it. It's kind of like 3 hours out of 40 hours labor comes to about 7%. So they donate 7% of their profits to the city. That gives them access to all of the benefits of the membership of that city system, just like anybody else. But they're not actually doing any work in this case. I mean, they are working. They're a business owner. They're handling their business the way they always have. But now they're getting credit for being a part of the system. And just like an individual. So everything's handled the same way. If they need labor from the city to repair things, same way as a person needs labor for their house, it would be handled the same way. So the business would be handled almost identical to an individual, and profits would be seen kind of like as the person's salary. They would share the portion of that same way as a person does when they contribute their labor time. So now they're contributing their business profit. So that it seems just a simple way to structure that. So these are just some ideas I came up with for how to transition businesses over to this way of becoming a more conscious city, and not throwing businesses under the bus, as I said, but businesses can be a part of this whole system. And I hope that explains it well enough.